The F-15 is designed to maximize our technical capability today to put the very best we know how to put into an air-to-air environment, involving maneuverability, involving excess thrust, involving integrated fire control systems, involving the armament to give us the very best in air superiority. The people in the Air Force Organization and the McDonnell Douglas Corporation and Pratt Whitney are technical experts and they're problem solvers. I have never seen a finer joint government industry team that's organized with the technical competence to carry out the job that's been assigned to them, or to do it in a manner of close-knit teamwork.
The airplane we're unveiling today represents a major addition to our foundation of strength. The F-15, which will be known as the Eagle, possesses capabilities that transcend those of any previous air superiority fighter. It embodies the latest in aerospace science and engineering.
I'd like to give you a brief description of the F-15. It's 63.8 feet long, has a 42.8-foot wingspan, and is 18.6 feet overall height to the top of the twin vertical tail. Fully loaded, the F-15 weighs approximately 40,000 pounds. The nose section houses a new and more powerful Hughes radar designed specifically for one-man operation and to provide increased reliability and ease of maintenance. The cockpit and canopy are so located as to provide excellent visibility in all quadrants. Immediately after the cockpit, on each side of the fuselage, twin variable capture area inlets ensure compatibility between the airframe and engine at both supersonic and transonic speeds. On the top of the fuselage, a large speed brake provides the deceleration characteristics needed for combat, as well as increased glide path control. The fillet at the junction of the wing and fuselage on the right-hand side houses the 20-millimeter cannon. Later, this gun will be replaced by a 25-millimeter cannon using caseless ammunition. On the underside of the fuselage, there are 4 corner-mounted AIM-7F Advanced Sparrow radar-guided missiles for medium-range targets. In addition, 4 AIM-9L Advanced Sidewinder heat-seeking missiles are carried on wing pylons for use against short-range targets. The wing is structurally and mechanically very simple. This has been accomplished entirely through advanced aerodynamic design of the wing. The wing also carries additional internal fuel to go with the fuel carried in the center fuselage. The twin vertical tails are designed to provide directional stability to the highest angles of attack encountered in combat. And the basic structure of both the horizontal and vertical tail uses the new boron composite materials to save weight and to increase strength and rigidity in this critical area. The F-15 also makes extensive use of titanium to save weight, and also where its use for superior fatigue and heat-resisting characteristics is required. The aft fuselage carries the 2 new Pratt & Whitney F-100 fan engines, which give the F-15 an unprecedented thrust-to-weight ratio for fighter aircraft. The F-15 represents a new dimension in air superiority.
I christen the Eagle, and may you reign supreme in your domain.
Hear, hear.
My reaction to the flight was that I was, first of all, thrilled to be in the airplane for the first time. Secondly, I feel like it's going to be a good airplane from what I can see of it today. And I'm just real enthusiastic about the airplane and the program. We got to do most of the things that we wanted to do and look at the airplane through most of the envelope we expected to see. And the airplane handles well, and the engines ran well, and we are quite happy about the flight as of right now. Our vertical profile was to take off and climb to 12,000 feet. and most of our operation was performed at 12,000 feet today. Now, over the ground, our track was a sort of a square pattern around the big lake bed out there, so if we had any problems, we could have landed on the lake bed. Our speed range was from 250 knots down to 135 knots, and we looked at the aircraft handling characteristics both with control augmentation system on and off, and we looked at engine handling response from idle power to maximum afterburner.
Irv, did the aircraft meet the Air Force contract requirements for the first flight?
Oh, certainly. Our requirements to meet the milestone which we were interested in meeting this time was to be airborne before the 31st of July and investigate a certain medium-range portion of the altitude and speed envelope. And we did it 4 days ahead of schedule.
Could you outline briefly the rest of the test flight program?
Okay, briefly, we've got to look at things like the handling qualities of the airplane and under any different configuration, external tanks and weapons and so forth. We've got to investigate thoroughly the propulsion system. We've got to do a structural integrity program in the airplane, which will be on the number 4 airplane. We've got to do a spin program, which investigates the stall characteristics and the tendency of the airplane to spin and the qualities of the spin recovery. Tank and weapon separation and gunfire. And there's just a myriad of smaller details encompassed in each of these individual programs.
The F-15 took its first flight on the 27th of July 1972, and most of the test series had been satisfactorily completed by November 1974, when the first example went into squadron service. Its development can be seen as representing a victory of reality over theory, with a return to rather old-fashioned concepts of air combat. It is a basic factor of war today that the first function of an air force is to achieve air superiority. This has been the case in all major conflict since the sudden and brutal Luftwaffe campaigns which accompanied Hitler's armor in his blitzkrieg assaults on Germany's neighbors. The war was later decisively affected by the development of the long-range fighters which seized and held control of the skies for the Allies. In Korea again, it was the possession of the sky that made the United Nations forces secure from defeat. The critical contests in deciding air superiority are between the opposing fighter forces. As fighter speeds increased after Korea and missiles appeared to have come of age, theorists became convinced that the face of future fighter conflict had changed. In their forecasts, close engagement was seen as unlikely. Fighters would exchange missiles over considerable distances. At the end of the Korean War, Air Force pilots had described their need for a true air superiority fighter. But 10 years later, the Air Force was committed to a totally different inventory. The US possessed excellent interceptors to cut down enemy bombers and awesomely powerful attack fighters, but had no plane with a designed capacity to mix it with opposing fighters. The introduction of the F-15 to service redressed this need. However, with its arrival, a great strain was placed on the Air Force's resources. The USAF had recently become an all-volunteer force and was suffering a shortage of skilled manpower, particularly in maintenance staff. Once these problems were overcome, the F-15 achieved very high availability rates and a good reputation for reliability.
My name is Staff Sergeant Randy Charlin, and I'm from the 94th AMU 1st TAC Fighter Wing.
I'm Senior Master Sergeant Seville, Specialist Flight Chief.
I'm Lieutenant Jeff Reardon, and I'm the Assistant Officer in charge of the 94th Aircraft Maintenance Unit.
The skill base invested in ground personnel is a major asset in the Air Force's balance sheet. The importance of the service professionals increases with the technical complexity of the systems involved.
Our mission is to be ready to defend the United States under any conditions, to deploy anywhere, at any time, at a split given moment.
Every one of these aircraft takes special attention in order to get it to fly, and one person cannot do all the jobs that are necessary to do that. So we do have to work together as a team.
We have 8 different specialties that participate in repairing the aircraft and getting them ready for the mission.
Well, when you're out here working on these aircraft, you realize a lot of the pilots, they're putting their lives in your hands, and they trust you to do the job, and you just go out there and do it. You know you have to do it.
Every system has to be capable of operating. You've got weapons, radar shops, and others that are necessary for the plane to be fully capable for combat. You just got to slow down and take your time, because one mistake can be the pilot's last, and that's the last thing you want to do is hurry up a job that needs to take time.
What we're working with here is a combat-oriented maintenance unit, and it's pretty much everybody is working together.
I've done my job, and now it's up to the pilot to do his job.
By the end of 1979, the USAF was able to report that F-15 servicing was not only under control, but that 80% availability had been achieved. The teething problems with the Eagle's maintenance demands had become a thing of the past. The Eagle program was commenced as a result of two factors which undermined the theoretical certainties of the early 60s. Firstly, early Vietnam experience against MiG-17 and 21 fighters immediately demonstrated several important lessons about air-to-air combat. The missiles were often untrustworthy, and not only did aircraft get into close contact, but the combined approach speeds made it happen very fast. The maneuverability of the MiGs encouraged their pilots to aggressively enter into aerobatic struggles for firing position. The US pilot would be forced to take harsh evasive action. Immediately this happened, airspeed was lost, and World War II-style subsonic dogfighting ensued. American designers had been busily removing dogfighting ability from fighters, in line with air warfare theory, even to the point of deleting all guns from designs. A large and alarmingly important hole in the American inventory was made glaringly and embarrassingly obvious. The second factor to give impetus to the F-15 program was the appearance of new, highly sophisticated Russian aircraft, particularly the MiG-25 Foxbat. For the first time since the development of the F-86 Sabre, the USAF decided on a true, single-purpose air superiority fighter. The first operational deployments of Eagles overseas began in 1977 to the Bitburg base in West Germany. The first generation of Eagles were the F-15A single-seat and F-15B twin-seat operational trainer. 384 of the A's were built and some 60 B's. The first change of designation was the development of the C and D models. These were essentially very similar to the first Eagles, but had provision for extra fuel and a more advanced avionics fit. In the course of production of these models, some examples were further developed to a multi-mission capability, with provision for carrying a load of cluster bombs. This was a major change to the thrust of the program. It was generally conceded that McDonnell had succeeded in the original design aim. The F-15 was evidently a very special aircraft, and, though expensive, was clearly the best fighter available anywhere in the world. It was logical, therefore, to develop the airframe further and give the plane a wider range of missions, especially as this did not have to interfere with its competence at its main task. In pursuit of air-to-air dominance, the F-15 was given a totally dedicated avionics fit with dramatic capability. Its multi-mode pulse Doppler radar has the ability to track targets flying as low as 50 feet above the ground, as well as giving a target detection range of 100 miles. Enhancements have given the plane a programmable signal processor, which provides simultaneous tracking and scanning. The radar fit also gives high-resolution ground mapping, countermeasures resistance, and has a number of air-to-ground modes. Radar detectors, electronic warfare jammers, deception decoders, and other sophisticated avionics complement each other in giving the plane its combat superiority. The original specification had incorporated an advanced 25mm Gatling gun, firing caseless ammunition. To eliminate the weight of the normal cartridge cases and the time needed to extract them after firing, the concept envisaged the projectile being bonded to a solid block of propellant. However, development problems with the gun and its revolutionary ammunition led to cancellation of the project, and the F-15 is instead armed with the tried and true M61 Vulcan cannon. A large part of the F-15's success is the maneuverability the big plane possesses. With its huge wing area, the plane carries a very light loading, and this is allied to a thrust-to-weight ratio in excess of 1:1. In broad terms, the Eagle, normally taking off weighing around 40,000 pounds, has a total thrust of 50,000 pounds available. At sea level, the plane is capable of Mach 1.2. At altitude, it can sustain level flight at Mach 2.2, with a dash speed in excess of Mach 2.5. This performance comes from the lightweight engines, which develop an 8-to-1 excess of power over their weight. The C model has a maximum fuel load of over 35,000 pounds and can carry a maximum weapons load of up to 23,600 pounds. With external fuel, the plane has a ferry range of over 2,800 miles, and with in-flight refueling has a safe endurance of 15 hours. The F-15 design is configured to operate at high angles of attack, and the tall tail fins, the horizontal ramps, and the hinging of the intakes enhance this aspect of its performance. But everything about the Eagle reflects the considerations of its intended role. The Eagles quickly established their place in the inventory, claiming the delighted affection of their pilots along the way. While the service was deploying the new aircraft, McDonnell continued to work on the design. With the success of the bomb-carrying modified C models, another variant of the plane was developed. This was designed as a multi-role advance on the basic aircraft, developed from the twin-seat version of the plane. This became known as the Strike Eagle, the F-15E. The first of these was rolled out for its public reception in 1980.
This is a significant occasion, unveiling the F-15E dual-role fighter. The system will answer a need which our tactical Air Force commanders identified. That need is for an aircraft for theater air defense and airfield attack. It must have the range and payload capabilities to perform in the vast reaches of the Pacific and Southwest Asia theaters, as well as in Europe. It must perform deep interdiction and to find and attack fixed and mobile targets at night and under the weather. The F-15E will answer that need. Proud heir of the McDonnell aircraft tradition, the F-15E follows the trail blazed by the F-15 Eagle as one of our safest, most capable aircraft in our inventory. You have produced some 1,030 Eagles here, including 831 for service in the United States Air Force. The Chief of Staff, Larry Welch, put it well when he said the F-15E is a cost-effective approach to our deep interdiction requirements for years to come, destroying, delaying, disrupting the enemy force deployments and resupply efforts the Soviets count on, a powerful added deterrent.
Even with the current state-of-the-art airframe, engine, and avionics, the F-15 continues to have one of the highest available to fly rates of modern times. and probably more important than all of its records and of all of its accomplishments and the victories, is that it has become the safest fighter aircraft we have ever had in our history. Now, with all of these same expectations, we welcome the newest addition to the Tactical Air Forces that we'll see here today, the F-15E. The F-15E is indeed on the leading edge of technology. For example, the navigation system of the F-15E has 10 times the reliability and 3 times the accuracy over the F-15's current system.
To win aerial dominance in a war situation involves all of the resources of an air force. The possession of competitive or superior aircraft will not bring victory to poorly trained pilots. In training pilots for combat, it is essential that they practice under conditions that are realistic against planes that adequately resemble the variety of types that may be encountered in combat. Though the model for this training is the Navy's Top Gun courses, the USAF has developed the idea into the major exercises it conducts under the title Red Flag.
Red Flag is an exercise that we operate in the Tactical Air Command for all of the fighter forces of the United States Air Force. We have additional participation from all of the other tactical forces of the Navy and Marines, as well as our allies. Increasingly, we are experiencing participation with the Strategic Air Command and our Military Airlift Command forces in what has become the largest and most complex composite force exercise that's run anywhere in the world today. The composite force exercises that we run at Red Flag are run in other places in some ways. However, we have the unique opportunity here to run them on the best range, overland range that exists anywhere in the world today. Additionally, this overland range here at the Tactical Fighter Weapons Center is highly instrumented and extremely sophisticated in order to be able to provide feedback to the air crews, measuring their effectiveness in how they accomplish their missions and how they accomplish their mission objectives. The training that crews experience when they come to Red Flag starts with extremely detailed mission planning for large force attacks on interdiction-style targets, whereby all facets of tactical aviation are practiced. That involves the offensive counter-air role, airfield attack, suppression of enemy air defenses, electronic warfare, battlefield air interdiction, and defensive counter-air for those few forces that get to participate on the red side. Red Flag normally operates with approximately 100 aircraft on station here at Nellis for a 6-week period.
Red Flag is a combat scenario, using a typical tactical air raid as a task. The raid is sent into a battle area which simulates the threats in a very realistic manner. Air warfare has repeatedly reinforced an appreciation of the virtue of experience. Broadly speaking, a World War II fighter pilot, fresh to combat, had about a 50% chance of survival. After his first 10 missions, that figure became 90%. This observation, with different figures but a similar meaning, can be followed in later conflict. Red Flag aims to both lower the first figure and eliminate some of the time taken to settle in. The particular worth of the exercises is that they involve such a range of aircraft types. Of particular importance are the aggressor squadrons, representing Soviet aircraft, which are flown with Russian tactics by very experienced pilots. Red Flag-style exercises in dissimilar aircraft combat are run on an almost continuous basis. Though most are at Nellis, similar training is conducted around the world. It would be a poor air force whose pilots were only equipped to shoot down their own plane. But a lot of combat training is within units, and therefore between the same aircraft types. For pilots whose job it is to secure air supremacy, combat training against different aircraft types is essential.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hack, 11:10.
Mission data card, let's run over that. The call sign is Growl 41. We'll station at 10:25 or as necessary to make a start engine time of 10:45 and a takeoff at 11:10Z. Okay. Primary mission today, once again, is to cap in the low-fly area 1 with an alternate cap of low-fly area 3. And we're going to seek, engage, and of course when I say gauge, I mean we're going to kill the enemy.
The aggressor squadrons are the core of the training. Based in Europe and the Philippines as well as at Nellis, these men are the friendliest enemy the Western Air Forces have. Not only are the squadrons composed of very experienced and talented pilots, but these men are highly skilled experts in Warsaw Pact ways of flying and fighting. They are methodically schooled in the tactics, the formations and combat training of the Soviets and their allies. Against the aggressors, a fresh pilot has the chance to make a few tactical errors and not be killed in the process. In simulated combat, he has the chance to absorb wartime experience, and at the end of the process is far better prepared to fight than he would be under any other training system. The aggressors are a link between the intelligence community and the pilot in the cockpit. Knowledge about the operations and abilities of potential enemies is vital to the pilot, and this information is imparted by red flag in a way that is immediate and lasting. About the only warfare realism which red flag does not supply is the experience of actively firing air-to-air missiles. Kills are determined electronically, and this tends to be a major distortion of reality, in that the assumption of the computers has to be that the notional missile launched has functioned perfectly. Missiles are notorious for the number of things that can and do go wrong with them, but this randomness would not be simple to factor into the exercise. Barring this quibble, the scheme has proved to be the most valuable training available. The Nellis range, the size of Switzerland, is covered in complex installations to simulate SAM sites, Russian radars, airfields and armored columns. The squadrons, complete with their ground crews, arrive at Red Flag to learn their shortcomings and overcome them. Red Flag has become part of the routine training for USAF pilots. The aim of the Tactical Air Command is that each unit go to one exercise each year. Some units, flying aircraft types that are specifically valuable in the running of the exercise, attend more.
The maintenance technicians that are represented here represent every specialty that we would normally operate with at a home station. But the people that operate here operate in much more confined space and with much less equipment than they do in home stations. The emphasis here is to represent a combat situation for the maintenance personnel as well as for the air crews. Temperatures this week have reached to 115 degrees with 38% humidity, and it certainly has been a taxing situation for the young men and women that have to take care of these aircraft around the clock.
To go out and see 70 or 80 airplanes launch for a mission and turn right around and launch again and again. We're trying to simulate a combat environment out there, and it's almost like simulating it back here on the ground too. And they're probably as much a key to Red Flag as any other single portion of it.
It's probably the best place for them to learn what kinds of problems are possible and how to deal with those problems themselves with the minimum amount of resources in terms of tools, equipment, and technical expertise.
Pull 1-1, taxiing to position and hold runway 21 left, advise ready for departure. Okay, want me to taxi down a little bit before we all take off? Thanks, Flight 4. That all right? Pull 1-1, affirmative.
You know, when you're sitting out there on the ramp and you're holding number 26 for takeoff, it's amazing the command and control that the tower and radar people, just for coordination of the takeoffs getting out to the ranges, and all the sequencing and traffic, and you just see airplane after airplane, 4 ships, 5 ships, 6 ships, single ships, everything in the world, every kind of combination. And then think of the control and coordination it took to sequence all that people and get them all back safely. It's all a very well-organized, well-run operation.
The contact now 30 degrees left at 25.
Split off to the north. You got one 225 for 13, and the other one is 5 miles north of him.
Okay, I got the north guy. Watch that guy to the other side there, about thanks. Roger, looking.
He's saying you go after the guy to the south. He's 230 for 10 coming at you.
I got it, because it doesn't fit this time.
Looks like we got some F4s north of Felicia Peak. We got the Bandits 150 for 40 miles. We may try to hit over that way. You headed south now.
That's firm. We're steady about 170.
Okay, the lead just went in a right-hand turn to south. Come hard left, 180. Check on the nose a mile.
You got a bogey, 6 o'clock for 6,000 feet.
Right.
Keep the turn in. We're coming around hard on him.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Going left. Somebody pick him up.
Roger, he's off us. He switched, reverse back, come back left. He's at our 9 o'clock now. Go to that little peak. Okay, I can be in on it, Bureau Roy.
Get flared in. I'll stay in a right turn. Get him.
He's saying, watch the guy now, 235 for 6 coming at you. Gonna meet him head on, thing. Okay, I got him. Oh, Fox 1.
Okay, fine. The one I just shot is coming right over the court side. This time it's about 6 miles west of court side. Okay, that's where I'm at.
2-3, you got power on 2-4. 3, let me help. Okay, the band is at U-2-3, 12 o'clock for about 6,000. Hey, we got another one at 6. Break right. Hard right. We got another band at right. Go hard right. Okay, now. Pull up, Rob. Your way. Band is now 150, 44. Tracking about 340.
Ready? Pick up. Load it down. Load it down. Okay, Jake. Just slick, break your lock after you get impact. Now 1-2, up to 12 o'clock.
U-24, hard right. We're coming right. Down we go. 1 zip.
Okay, we're going to pick up 6-8.
It's really pretty rewarding because you see these guys start off, and by the end of the second week, it goes from just getting orientated out there to the problems of the range and a new environment to the last week, the attitudes changed, they become aggressive. The learning curve is just unbelievable. That's what we're trying to achieve here.
Fox 1 on the Bandit.
As time progresses, the guys become more and more confident, and the last day they have the attitude, man, we can lick 29 tigers, we can do anything now. This is the kind of progressed training we get out here, and I feel it's very good for us.
We've got to be prepared to be able to react to any type of environment, to go out and do our job and come back alive. It's very hard to relate to this entire red flag experience as being simulated. It's so realistic.
This one exercise has probably done more for the readiness of the Tactical Air Force than anything in the past. It brings it all together, and hopefully that now, if he's got to go to war, he's got an idea of where to start at least.
What we want him to do is to walk away from Nellis with the feeling that they have faced the toughest adversary that they have to face.
The F-15 is the Rolls-Royce of fighters. No other fighter, east or west, can match its combination of light wing loading, high thrust-to-weight ratio, long-range radar, and radar-guided missiles. The only major problem the project has encountered is expense. The Eagle is not a cheap aircraft, and this has been reflected in its buyers. The only foreign sales have been to the Saudi Arabians and Japanese, to whom money is not that much of a problem, and the Israelis, whose legitimate paranoia demands the best at any cost. The plane has considerable scope for further development, both to enhance its primary role and add to its versatility, and remains unchallenged as the supreme air superiority weapon. Excluding the 20 development aircraft, USAF procurement of the F-15 is expected to total 1,266 by the mid-1990s. Israel bought 51, Saudi Arabia 72, and the Japanese 187, 173 of which were built in Japan. For McDonnell Douglas, This sales success must be a satisfactory reward for the creation of the most potent fighter yet produced in large numbers. The only possibly greater reward would be the plane's design success. After all, no company could possibly object to having its product widely acclaimed as the best in the world.